Hi, I'm Greg from SafeRideForKids.com, where we help parents just like you travel safely with their children. Today I wanted to talk to you about rear-facing child restraints. Now that could be a convertible seat like this, or the infant carrier type child restraint. The things that we're going to talk about are universal, whether you're talking about a convertible child restraint or those rear-facing only child restraints like an infant carrier. The first thing I want to talk about is kind of why do we want to keep children rear-facing? Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends keeping children rear-facing as long as possible, but with a minimum of 2 years old. And a lot of parents think that that's a really long time to keep a child rear-facing. But what I want to talk about is why. Why do we keep a child rear-facing? So if you think about it, if this vehicle was traveling down the road this way, the most common type of crash is a forward impact because, we all drive around forward, so we run into stuff, right? Well, in that type of crash, the child's entire head, neck, and body are supported by the child restraint. Now, what happens is as soon as we take a child and put them forward facing, now in that same crash, we're using the harness system to restrain their body, but their head and neck are unrestrained. And if there's enough crash energy, then their head and neck actually gets overstretched and they end up with spinal cord problems, or actually it could result in death. So that's why it's so important to keep children rear facing as long as possible up to the upper weight limit of the seat. And that varies by manufacturer and model. So be sure to check your child restraint and determine, it will be on a label on this child restraint, what is the rear facing limit, and you want to keep that child rear facing up to that limit. The next thing to talk about is the harnessing of the child restraint, or of the child in the child restraint. Now this model happens to be a Britax. And what this seat offers 4 different slots where the child harness goes through the shell of the child restraint. Now again, as a child passenger safety technician, one of the common mistakes that we see is when a parent takes the seat apart in order to clean the fabric, to clean the cover, and they don't get it put back together correctly. So if you're going to do that, I highly recommend that you look at the owner's manual for your seat and make sure that you're assembling it according to those instructions. Another way to do it is to, use your smartphone or your phone or a camera of any sort and take some pictures as you take it apart to make sure that you're putting it together the same way that it came apart. So when a child is rear facing, we want to make sure that the harness is going through the seat at or below the child's shoulder. So what that would look like is if this is the child's shoulder, we want to make sure that where the harness goes through the seat is either level with or below the child's shoulder. The reason for that is when there's a crash, one of the first movements that the seat is going to make is it's going to want to lie down because all the crash energy is moving forward. So what we want to avoid is having that child slide up into the harness and then stop suddenly. So we want to make sure that that strap is cradling their shoulder. The other thing that we want to make sure of is that the harness retainer clip, or that clip here at the chest level, is positioned right about the armpit level of the child. Then we want to make sure that the harness is tight. So we want to pull the looseness out of the hips and up here into the upper part of the restraint, and then use the adjustment strap to pull it tight and snug onto the child. What we're looking for is if you can pinch the webbing at any point here, If you can pinch the webbing like this, it's too loose. What we want to be able to do is kind of maybe bunch it up a little bit, but not be able to fold it over. We like to call it snug as a hug. So that's the harnessing. Then this clip, you want to make sure is armpit level again. If you ever do take your seat apart, you want to look at the back of the seat and make sure that it's properly positioned and that the straps aren't twisted or folded. This particular restraint looks like it's reinforced for all positions, but on a convertible child restraint, rear facing, you're probably going to be in one of the lower slots here. Now, I mentioned something real quickly there that I want to focus on for a second, which is you want to make sure that your straps are flat, not twisted. Because what happens if this is all twisted up on the child and there is a crash, all of the crash energy is now focused on a much smaller part of the child's body than if it's on a nice, flat, wide part of their body going across their shoulder. So we always want to make sure that we're keeping those straps nice and flat on the child. The next thing to talk about is when do they outgrow the seat? Now, we want to make sure that the child is within the manufacturer's weight and height limits for the seat. So that's the first place you're going to look. And from a practical perspective, when they're rear facing, we want the top of their head no more than 1 inch to the top of the seat. Okay, so in a rear facing position, we don't want their head any closer to the top than 1 inch from using the top of their head as the measurement up to here. So the next thing that you're going to do is secure the child restraint into the vehicle. So no matter what model you're looking at, if you have a convertible child restraint, there should be 2 belt paths. There's going to be a rear facing belt path and a forward facing belt path, which is usually here on the back of the child restraint. There's another thing, which is the recline mechanism, that you want to make sure that your child restraint is in the rear facing position for that recline mechanism. And you're going to need to consult your child seat installation manual. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the vehicle seatbelt system and route it through the rear facing belt path. Okay, so here we've gone through the one side and we're going to come across to here we have the vehicle's buckle the latch plate. Then we're going to use just one hand here pulling on the shoulder portion. If you notice, this is the lap portion, this is the shoulder portion, and we're just going to rock a little bit back and forth to get the lap portion holding that seat nice and tight. Then we're going to reach over here and switch the vehicle's retractor. And if you didn't see our video on that, go back to the menu and you'll see a video for vehicle seatbelt systems, and you can learn all about how to switch that retractor. Then we just want to make sure that we get all the excess webbing fed back up into the retractor. Now what we're looking for is for the seat to move less than 1 inch back and forth or front to back with only 12 pounds of force. So this right now would be a correct installation. What we might find is if the seat were to move forward or upright too much, we could use a rolled towel or some swimming pool noodles cut to length to help support the foot of that seat and keeping the child at the proper rear-facing angle. Now that's using the vehicle seatbelt system. All car seats now are sold with what's called a latch system, which stands for lower anchors and tethers for children. And this model this is what the strap looks like. And the way that that would work is from a rear-facing, for the rear-facing position, this is going to buckle into the vehicle's lower anchor system. And if you want to take a look right here, you can see here in the bite between the vehicle seat back and the seat of the vehicle are these small bars. This is actually what the lower anchors on the child restraint are going to latch into, and you do not use the vehicle's seatbelt system when you're using the lower anchor system. So in a rear-facing seat, we will not be using the top tether anchor point, or the top tether that comes with the child restraint. So in order to install a convertible child restraint using the lower anchor system, you're going to buckle that in, and then use the adjustment straps to get a nice snug fit. Again, looking for less than 1 inch of movement side to side or front to back with 12 pounds of force. And just as a reference, it takes about 9 pounds to open the vehicle's car door. Now this particular model, the Britax, allows for the seat to be tethered rear facing, but if you have any questions about that and you own a Britax, go ahead and refer to your child restraints instruction manual on how to do that. That about covers rear-facing child restraints. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for visiting us at SafeRideForKids.com.